Their game one in the playoff series, the Portland Trailblazers had a laminated card in their locker room that included phrases like, "We don't lose to Spanish players." The first-round opponents, the Grizzlies, have one of the most popular Spanish players in the league, Marc Gasol. You see him there. When Portland was asked about it, head coach Terry Stotts said it was motivational and other things were on the card, like we are Rip City, we will be tougher. Nobody can beat us in 8 times in 1 year. Win the dogfight. We play as a team and outwork Memphis each and every night. We're better when we come to play. So there were motivational sayings, Stephen A., but the card, again, was first mentioned in a column. And what it got everyone's attention was the fact that they said, we don't lose to Spanish players. Your reaction?
I don't think it was wise for them to say such things, but I do believe that in a bevy of locker rooms within the NBA, which is more than 70% black, you do have players that harbor a slight resentment towards team officials, towards the league itself, because they believe in a perfect world, if the league had its druthers, that the league wouldn't be as black as it is. Now, obviously, that, to me, that's not an argument I'm wholeheartedly willing to support. When I think about former Commissioner David Stern and the battles that he's fought, when I think about the Players Associations from the days of Charlie Grantham, former executive director for the Players Association, with Isaiah Thomas as the president of the Players Association, to the Billy Hunters and beyond, the reality is that when you look at the governing body, when you look at the negotiating committees, the executive committees, there are so many African Americans that have done such a phenomenal job of representing the National Basketball Association that I am sure that the NBA as a collective body has greatly appreciated that. Commissioner Stern included, along with now Commissioner Adam Silver. But it doesn't negate the fact that there are a lot of players that look at the 19-year rule, a year out of high school, 19 years of age before you're allowed to participate. They understand that European players have to be at least 19 years of age as well before entering the NBA. But they still look at it. They look at the fact that America is 66% white. That's the American populace right now. Black community represents about 12% at this moment in time. The Latino community represents about 17% of the American population. The reality is that if you really want to make money, the thought process goes, you're trying to have mass appeal, because that's how you get your billions. And if you're not appealing to 66% of the population, then where is that going to get you? So from the NBA's perspective, it's all about business. It's all about making sure that we continue to grow our brand, and they support and market all of the players, irregardless of pigmentation, ethnicity, culture, etc. But at the same time, the players themselves may not always see it that way. In their eyes, they look at it from this perspective, Skip. The NBA is over 70% black. There's an age limit. There's an age, a rule in place. Yeah. The NFL, practically 70%. It's an age rule. Doesn't exist in hockey. Doesn't exist in tennis, doesn't exist in baseball, doesn't exist in all of these other sports that aren't dominated by African Americans. So the fact that that age rule is in place gives you cause to pause in the eyes of some of these younger guys that are not looking far beyond that. Somebody like me and others will look beyond that, see the intent of the NBA, the intent of league executives. They're looking for the best players. They don't care what color Dirk Nowitzki is. They don't care what color Marc Gasol is. They don't care what color Manu Ginobili is or anything like that. They don't care about that. They're interested in globalizing their brand. The Kembe Mutombo at Kinshasa, Zaire. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's what they're looking at. They don't care what color you are. Yeah. They care about your level of productivity. And if you're from a foreign nation, that appeals to them because it helps globalize their brand, which opens the avenue of revenue exponentially.
And by the way, the defending champs are very internationally flavored.
And very internationally flavored. So that's how they look at it. But if you are a black player, the reason why you think a tad bit differently, at least from time to time, is because of that age restriction. Because you're noticing that it only exists in the sports predominantly.
Okay, help me out on that one. You lose me on the age restriction as it applies to black and white.
No. What it's saying is, in other words, we've talked about Major League Baseball. What's the percentage of black players in Major League Baseball? It's like at 7%, 7.8%, if I remember correctly. Tennis, hockey. In other words, in other sports that are not predominantly black, you don't have an age restriction. But obviously in the revenue-generated sports, which happen to be dominated by African-American players, basketball and football, it exists there.
So that you have black players wondering in college, right? But you can argue that's just to keep players of whatever color in college.
That's true.
So that they can grade them better. They can rank them better for their drafts.
Absolutely, we look at it that way, and that's the argument that they would make. But if you are a black player in the league and you're seeing that these other sports don't have that argument that you make in terms of having longer to evaluate them, looking at guys, etc., etc., you're saying, why doesn't it exist there? Why does it only exist here in the sports we're dominating? And yeah, I understand their point of view. I don't agree with it totally, but I do understand where they're coming from.
I got it. Okay, I appreciate that. Now let's apply what you just said to a list of motivational sort of ploys, if you will. Here. We are this, we are that, we are this, and we don't lose to Spanish players.
Got it.
Okay, the Spanish player in question on the other team is Marc Gasol. And by the way, he was quoted as saying, I don't know what that means, honestly. I don't know, nor do I care.
Right.
Good for him. And Marc Gasol, as we both know, we've had him on the show, highly respected in the NBA, right? So as a motivational ploy, is that aimed at the black players in the Portland locker room? Who's it speaking to? We don't lose to Spanish players. What button is Terry Stotts as the head coach trying to push in his locker room?
I have no clue.
I don't either.
I don't know.
Okay, I don't get it. Okay, so what you're talking about doesn't specifically apply to this line and this sort of...
Right, I'm telling you, when I first heard the story, without knowing who put it up on the board, that's what came to my mind because of what I've had black players in the NBA tell me over the years.
I got it.
That's what entered my mind.
Okay, and just for the record, in the history of the Portland Trail Blazers, they have had 3 players from Spain, starting with...
Arvidas Sabonis?
No.
Not
from Spain.
Not from Spain.
But Rudy Fernandez was a very good player from Spain and a couple others. But on the roster right now, you got Nicolas Batum, who's from France, obviously. You have a Chris Kaman, who's a white player, obviously, but he played for the German national team because he has German roots. Okay, he grew up in the United States. Steve Blake, obviously, is a white player. Just because we brought this up, just for the record. And there's that Joel Freeland, who I'm not that familiar with, but he's from England, didn't make the playoff roster, but is on the bigger roster. Okay, so what is going on here? Because Terry Stott said yesterday that the Spanish thing was a little lighthearted. I don't know how.
It was the things we needed to do to win the
series. Okay, now remember, just in complete fairness here, after Wes Matthews went down, the Portland Trail Blazers went way down because they went 10-12 in their last 22 games. So they are reeling right now. They obviously lost game 1. These motivational ploys did not work. So he is a little desperate here. He's reaching. He's trying to push buttons all over the place in his locker room. But we don't lose to Spanish players. I don't get it. Honestly, I don't really understand what that means. Is it a joke? If it is, it seems like a bad joke.
It would be. It might be a bad joke. It may very well be a bad joke, or it may be something else, which is why I brought up what I brought up. Regardless of how uncomfortable it may make people, the fact of the matter is that these players think about these things from time to time.
Which is why I ask you, do you think it was aimed at the black players in Portland's locker room to motivate them? To say, we don't lose to...
And I'm saying to you, it could be, but I don't know. It would be, you know, to me, I'm not thinking you're trying to motivate a portion of your team as opposed to your entire team. So I can't make that argument. I don't know. But I do think that it's important to point out that you have guys who think along those lines from time to time because of some of the things that they notice. I'm telling you right now, you got these guys, they can't wait for the next ring of collective bargaining negotiations to come up. They can't wait, Skip, because with all of this TV money coming in here,
you're right.
You understand? They are salivating at the mouth because of what they gave up last time. What they gave up last time was in excess of $900 million a year. They lost a lot of money by giving up 57% of basketball-related income and having that dwindle down to 50%. These guys are paying attention to this kind of stuff, and they're looking at owners in the league league itself, the money that they're making. They're looking at a Baltimore giving the $2 million to the Sterlings to get the Clippers. They're looking at all of these things, and they're saying, okay, now you're trying to come up with an age limit. Why? Because the age limit buys additional time. Skip, if I get to hold off on you coming into the league for as late as possible. You got to remember the whole Spencer Haywood case from where the Supreme Court ruled in favor of him in 1971. They wanted, at the time the NBA was mandating that you stay in, you go through 4 years of college. I agree. And then make yourself eligible. He said, the hell with that. I should be allowed to leave earlier. He won the case, and one of the things that sickens him to this day is the fact that he doesn't get enough recognition because there was no LeBron James, Kobe, Jermaine O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, or anybody else if it wasn't for the Spencer Haywood case. But now you've got to find a way to circumvent that because you collectively bargain it. You included in the collective bargaining negotiations that allows you to circumvent a Supreme Court ruling.
I agree.
And they pay attention to this stuff.
I've said on the show dozens of times, it's unconstitutional to tell a high school senior he can't, if he so chooses,
he can't
go try pro basketball or pro football.
And I don't want to say it's a difference between you and I because I know you're conscientious enough to bring this point up. So I'm not pointing the finger at you, Skip, in any way. But I think it's important to recognize you would say that you bring that stuff up. And I'm telling you what they think because it's up. So in other words, I'm saying, this is how they're thinking. They're noticing the discrepancy between football, basketball, baseball, and hockey.
Fine. So those same players you have talked to, the black players you have spoken to.
Over the years, many times.
When they see Dirk get drafted, Ginobili get drafted, either Powell or Marc Gasol get drafted, are they thinking they're getting drafted only because of the color of their skin?
Not at all. Not at all. Because they know they can play.
They can play.
But they know they can play. But they do look at the league and say, in a perfect world, this is your preference. So it's not a shot at Dirk Nowitzki, just like it wasn't a shot at Larry Bird. Like, this brother can play. You have brothers calling him a brother because Larry Bird was that bad of a boy.
Totally agree.
No problem with it. But they're still looking at the league and saying, in your perfect world, you would have wanted that guy.
Would they want?
Not us.
Were they talking about Euro white players or American white players?
It don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It don't matter.
Again, Terry Stott said the Spanish thing was lighthearted. He was trying to use it for motivational purposes.
Yeah, that's a wise thing to say now.
Let's
say it was lighthearted.
He went from late bloomer to prized prospect. Former USC defensive end Leonard Williams is at the pick'em board. He'll join the desk.
Let's see his intelligence. I know who we better pick.
Why are you questioning his intelligence?
I know who he will pick.
I know who he better pick.
Time out. Leonard, if you want to pick Manny, don't feel pressure, okay?
You know better than listening to Kerry.
Be smart. Be courageous.
Be smart. Make your pick.
Am I making my pick now? All right. I know I see a lot of people on Mayweather's side, but I'm going to go with Pacquiao.
That's what I'm saying. You're a smart young man. He'll join the desk after the break.
He's not getting drafted.
Get on over here.
He's not getting drafted.
Get on over here.
I'm going for the underdog.
He's not getting drafted.
He's going to be